The ding-dong at Dominica, as no one will call this match. Pitch with some bounce for the quicks and some spin for the tweakers. And it's a tough position from here for the West Indies. I mean, it was tough coming in, since any form or talent that they've ever had seems to disappear once they play against India. But having spin and bounce certainly didn't help the West Indians and did help the Indian Indians. And the difference between these two teams seemed to be this Ashwin bloke. After being dropped for the WTC final, Ashwin was back. He was also dropped for the 2019 tour against the West Indies as well. So him just playing was a big deal. That the best spinner in the world can't get his own team is its own vibe. But he finally got in the side, and he dismisses Tajdwan Chandrapal with a similar delivery to the one he bowled to Cook in Edgbaston in 2018. Floated in, straightened, and good luck being a left-hander to a ball like this. But more importantly, he joined one of the most elite clubs in cricket, as one of the few men who has ever dismissed father and son. This is actually his 5th match in a row of dismissing a Chandrapal, when a Chandrapal was available to him to be dismissed. So not only is Ashwin hunting left-handers, he's now trying to end their bloodline. And the Chandrapal wicket also puts him in elite company, because very few people have ever dismissed father and son. Both of them did it. Wasim did it, Mitchell Starc did it, and also Simon Harmer. I mean, Simon Harmer's only played 10 tests. The rest of these guys have played over generations and will go down in many record books. Harmer spent most of his career off on a gap year tormenting county players. He only has 39 test wickets, and 37 of them are not related to each other, as far as I'm aware. Ashwin wasn't the only spinner, of course. Ravi Jadeja does what he did best. He took a bunch of wickets and kept things tight. He went at less than 2 runs and over and bowled 7 maidens. Although it took a blinder from Siraj to get Blackwood. Having said that, Jermaine Blackwood kind of was always going to play that shot, or a shot like that, and eventually get caught. But Jadeja frustrated him so much that he tried that shot before lunch. Although again, Blackwood would probably do that before lunch as well. I love Jermaine Blackwood. In a 40-ball stretch after lunch, he gave away just 3 runs and dismissed De Silva by deceiving him with a straighter line and a bit of extra bounce. He also took Roach's wicket and cleaned up the tail. And of course, at times, Roach can stick around a little bit. Ask Pakistan. Talking about people who like to stick around, I've covered Kraigg Brathwaite for a very, very long time. Sometimes it feels like his individual innings are a very, very long time. Since making his debut, no one else has scored 3,000 runs in Test cricket this slow. That is partly because Dom Sibley never made that many, but for over a decade, Brathwaite has been like a rock, blunting the new ball 1 nudge at a time. And that is the same against pace and spin. He's just always slow. In fact, I've gone back and had a look at old footage of him playing club cricket and school cricket. He played the exact same way. He has been, from a very young age, someone who never plays a big shot. But when off-spinners bowl to him, there is a slight difference. He will still do all the blocking and the nudging, but then about an hour in, he'll just try and swipe one over cow corner. It's not really a slog sweep, it's kind of more like a slog. Sometimes it's like a drive, sometimes it's just a heave. But if you look at his average by zone of ground against off-spin, you can see that the only place that he averages less than the mid-wicket area is when he's caught at slip. But he's been caught in that slip area 4 times. He's been dismissed 7 times at mid-wicket. And the problem with this shot is, it's not a particularly good shot to begin with, and he plays it poorly. That's a pretty bad combination. And the whole thing seems to come from boredom. But why that's surprising is you only see him play this against offies. His strike rate doesn't really show that he attacks offies any more than anyone else. And most of the time, he doesn't. Until out of nowhere, he tries to smack the ball across the line like a madman. Today, he wasn't caught out at deep mid-wicket. He actually edged it straight up in the air and gave Ashwin a very easy wicket. But the one person who didn't give his wicket away particularly easy today was the West Indian Athanaze in his first test match as well. He's more than just an alliterative name, although he is also an alliterative name. Alliterative? Is that a word? I think it is. But he's also a very decent and graceful lefty with the bat. He doesn't always move his feet a lot. He gets stuck a little bit in his crease, but he has excellent balance. And he seemed to want to score from, mostly against the quicks. He was trying to score from backward point through to cover. And I do wonder how that will go when bowlers come around the wicket to him a lot more. Although today they did actually come around the wicket to him and he seemed to handle it fine. But it didn't look like he had a lot of ways of scoring off fast bowlers. With the spinners, he has a few options. Again, he's very good from point to cover. However, there was also 3 boundaries to the sweep. And there's absolutely no doubt that he's a sweeper. And India did the new trend we're seeing a lot in tests of keeping the square leg up. The thinking there is even the better sweepers will struggle when trying to overhit the ball to beat the fielder. But Athanaze just went over the fielder's head. And overall, he looked in good control of his game, which, considering how every other West Indian batted, and the fact that he only made his second first-class 100 like a couple of games back, this was very good not. And he's already the captain of Wimbledon Irons. There is clearly something about him, even if he hasn't made a lot of first-class runs yet. But he wasn't the only debutant today, because we also had Jaiswal, who played a reverse sweep in the final over of the day. I mean, there is confidence, and then there is that. Even Ashwin was laughing after the day's play. But from the moment Jaiswal went out there, it was like he was 75 not out. Early on, he was a little bit loose when the ball was moving in the air. And there was one time when I wasn't as sure about him, was when he took on Rakeem Cornwall. Considering the spin and the bounce, it seemed like a risky thing for a left-hander to do for no good reason. But also, Cornwall is not the kind of spinner that Jaiswal would have ever faced. There aren't that many spinners in the entire world of his height, and none of them have his strength. So it was interesting watching him go so hard. But it was only one over, and then he changed his plan straight after. I think that shows us something. And in fact, there was a lot to like in his 40-odd. He got into his innings by leaving the ball. For all the talk of how he was allowed to attack, it was the tempo and decision-making in defense that was really impressive from him. He milked when he could, he hit boundaries when it was in his favor, but he was also willing to just wait. Lots of players can attack. The ability to score or not, based on the occasion, is what the best players in the world do. All I'm saying is there might be a reason his first-class average is now 80. It's worth saying that this is a very different kind of Indian pace attack to last time. That's because they had Bumrah, Ishan and Mohammad Shami. Now with Bumrah injured, Ishan out of favour and Shami being rested, they have Siraj, Unadkat and Thakur. That's obviously a downgrade. But I thought they bowled quite disciplined early on. I was perhaps most interested by Mohammad Siraj's bouncer spell. I wondered if it was partly inspired by the Lord's Test recently. The fields weren't fully in, but it was in that middle part of the game, and it just felt like India went, okay, let's try some bouncers. I also just want to mention Shardul Thakur, who took a wicket today, and who just by being in the side, weakens it a little bit with the ball. He's also not an all-rounder with the bat, although his chaos batting can be very handy at times. But because of Ashwin and Jadeja's better batting, it allows him to still be in the side, and because of Jadeja specifically, that means that he can be the fifth bowler. He's a very good fifth bowler. And one of the reasons is he's really willing to attack with the ball. He will bowl much fuller than most international bowlers will. And I think that's what makes him more dangerous than his pace or overall talent would suggest. He can really pitch the ball up and give himself a huge chance of a wicket. And a lot of people talk about Lord Thakur's golden arm. But part of it I think is just because he's attacking more with different kinds of lengths. But the other part was on show today. He can bowl a wobble ball, which is the little black dress of modern seam bowling. But on top of that, he can still swing the ball. Many pacers struggle to bowl the wobble ball and then go back to swing straight away. He doesn't have that issue. But he can also bowl off cutters and leg cutters at will. Most bowlers can do an off cutter, but the leg cutter is far more rare. You throw in a good bouncer and there's a lot of different skills there. He's probably not elite at any one of them, but it's really rare for a seamer to have this many options they can use in a game. And the last issue to talk about here is the Indian keeper one. KS Bharat is a very good keeper. But with Rishabh Pant injured, surely it makes a lot more sense to see what Ishan Kishan can do, especially in a lower stakes game. Now I do understand why Bharat fans will be upset as he plays against the tougher teams. But that is the life of an older understudy. The young shiny thing is always going to get preference and get the better conditions. But when India thinks it's tough or a must-win game, that's probably when they say, oh, we better get that old fella back in. For what it's worth, I actually thought Ishan took two really good catches today. Diving forward off Thakur was a really good take. Off the bat, I didn't actually think it would even reach him. And then the big edge behind from Jadeja as well. That ball deviated a long way. I don't know how much India will learn about Ishan or Jaiswal in this game because they're already massively ahead and I would expect more of that tomorrow.